So I don't do any of that you mentioned before, but I'll tell you what I'm doing actually. So as you can see on my presentation, actually, I didn't expect that many people, so thanks for coming today. The topic of my presentation today is like why some engineers are getting hired and others don't. And as the summary says, I don't really know. Because in general, recruiting is not a science. It's probably the easiest job in like the world, but it still has a lot of complications we can discuss today and follow the journey, understand why some people get hired and others don't. So the agenda is very basic and simple. I'll do a quick intro so you know who am I and why actually I'm here. I don't know why, but I'll tell you. And then there is important slide, some recruiting misconceptions about people I spent like last 10 years, but actually saying it's not true. And of course, we will get to the main topic why some engineers are getting hired and others don't. And of course, some like basic stuff what AI brings to recruiting and might bring into the like next 5 to 10 years. So I was raised and born in Ukraine. In 2011 I moved to Poland. So I studied here, and I got my first job. But the most important part, I got my Polish passport, so which actually allowed me to travel the world and go to Portugal in 2017 and then to London. The Polish passport was important because that time companies would never help you with the visa support for people if you're not like engineering or like super talent, or like it was like blue card. So right now it's way more easier, but that time without the passport it was really like impossible to get an offer from any other company outside like Poland in European Union or anywhere else. So Polish passport helped me a lot, and that's how I got to Portugal. So when I moved to Portugal, it was my first, not like big tech, but tech job. So I was part of Farfetch. It was luxury e-commerce group that time. It was like first real job where I was working with the big engineering teams. And I wasn't planning to move from the company, but then in 2018, my boss called me. Basically, I got the email from Facebook, and I was like, wow, this is an opportunity I can't actually say no to, even though I really enjoyed my life in Portugal. Very low salary, high cost, but I actually enjoyed the weather and people are very great. But that time for me, I thought that the opportunity to join Facebook, I never thought about before. So I started the process and I actually got rejected. So after the rejection, they told me, as you know, they usually tell, we can save your CV for future efforts, future like opportunities, and they never come. Actually, that time it came like a week later, and I went to the process again, and I said to myself that if I don't get this time I will probably never get that. So in 2018, I moved to London. I've never been to London before, and it was like a big experience for me, not just moving to a new company, but to a new country as well. So a very important slide here. I can't legally refer to any meta experience which is not public. But if you want to ask me any question and get any of the like secret information, just buy me a drink afterwards. I can give you like anything you want. But it's a very important slide. So the big recruiting misconception over the last 10 years, a lot of people were saying, hey guys, you're like scanning CVs with the software just to reject most of the people. So there are a lot of good people who are getting rejected by, software. I never seen any company using that, like never. Even right now with the AI, we don't do that. We don't really review your CV, we just keep it, but we never use like any scan software for keywords. So it's like, we never do this. So second of all, that companies lowball candidates on the salary. I've never seen this before. So normally what happens is that you go through the process, you get the seniority offer, and then you go performance during the interview, and that's how you get the salary. In big tech, nobody goes for a lower salary because nobody cares. As a recruiting site, we give what we already company established salary size or like salary ranges. And this is the most important part. Top companies have top recruiters. It's not true. Like every top company has a lot of people who are like below average. But we'll get why it's happening there. But it's important thing to understand that when you apply to any company, especially the top companies or like funk companies, you expect that it will be the top experience because you assume that it'll be top recruiters working with you. It's not like very much true unless you come to me, but also depends on my mood. So the two things we are looking at the CVs or a profile, which the most important part for me when I potentially look at the profile, CV, your experience, whatever, it's seniority and scope. Those two things are going all together because when I'm looking at the profile, your title, your years experience doesn't really matter because if I don't know your company, what do you do, it doesn't give me much more indication. So that's why your CV or your profile, I want you to tell me what you're doing, like what do you own, what things you're working on, what size and complexity of the system you own. Like if you're working on a, I don't know, fintech, what size of transactions you're working on. Because you can be head of universe and do like enterprise product. You can be a software engineer doing like billion user products. So those two things are the most important because I know like title with the big companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, they have very similar structure of the company's hiring process. So it makes easier for people, let's say from Google to Microsoft or to Meta, because first of all, the process is the same. The scale of the product usually is the same. So these people already has advantage compared to people who comes from smaller companies or companies who are outside this FANG or AI stuff. So it's important for us to gather as much signal as possible without knowing your company. So when you apply for any role, give as much details about what you actually do, what you actually own, to show your complexity and your seniority, not based on years experience. You can be 20 years experience and know nothing. You can be 6 years experience and be at director's level already, depending on things you've been doing before, you're doing right now. So this is too important thing when we get to the next slide. So again, seniority is kinda complements scope. Scope complements seniority. So there is only two things. We used to look into the education, but for a senior level hiring, education doesn't really matter that much because people who started like 20 years ago, they were before Java existed. So why do we care if they go to computer science or physics or anything else? So, but for a lower level, when you have less signals from the company, university can be a signal. But again, dependent. We can't know every like best university, and also in the hiring process, we can see the difference between like internet rating is different from what we are hiring from. Like we know good Polish universities for tech, but it doesn't mean that every person from that university will get an offer. But again, scope and seniority, those two main fundamental parts we are looking at. So why some people get offers and others don't? Because there are like two different sports. One sport is being good in interior and another is being good in what your job. Because I've seen a lot of people who can be really good at their job, but they can't shape their experience into the role they're applying for. Because it's two different things. Each company has different process, has different structures. So it's really important to use your experience in shape into the process of the company you're applying for. That's how you can get an offer. But again, if you're good at your job, doesn't mean you're good in the interior, so it's really important to prepare. But if you're not good at your job, you still can get an offer. So for us to understand why people do get offers or not, we can just go from the main stages of the process. So application, referral, or recruiter approach. So there is one important thing people don't understand. So your chances to apply and get noticed by myself, for example, or any other recruiter is way lower than your chances to get an offer once you're already in the process. So imagine you have a job you apply for. 1,000 people will apply. But once you CV get noticed by me or colleagues or any other recruiter, the conversion rate from people who are already in the process to the offer is way higher. So imagine like it's 1% your CV will be noticed and there's like 25% you will get an offer if you already have a conversation with the recruiter. So application is the first and probably the most important part of the interview process because you need to put as much effort into applying as the same effort you put in the entire process. Because if your CV didn't go to the recruiter or don't go to me, you will never get an offer. So that's how important to apply and do it in very strategic approach. I can tell a bit more. So referral has like historically the higher rate of getting an offer, because if you getting referred by somebody within the company, it's already a signal for us that you might be a good candidate for us. So usually, if you have anybody in the company you want to work for, just ask for referral. It shouldn't be like direct referral, like this person knows you're good, but it still will be a signal. And of course, if myself or any other recruiters reached out to you, we already reaching out because we believe that you might be a good fit. Sometimes like LinkedIn profiles are very empty. We can see only the company or like university. So if I already believe you might be a good fit, it's already like a one step into like door to get an offer. So the recruiter scholar, like we call it pre-screen, is I want you to confirm my thoughts about you already. So if I reached out to you or I like already saw your CV, the one thing you need to just confirm things I already know, the scope, scale, that you can speak English if you're outside like native speaking countries. Show me that you're like motivated, what you're doing right now, basically to confirm things in your CV. But as I said before, I sometimes reach out to people with the empty profile. So I want to get all the information about what you do, what do you own, who you report to, basically scope of the things you're working or your product, and of course seniority compared to the company you're hiring for. So a hiring manager call or like technical screen is the first actual check of your knowledge. For many big tech, it's usually like coding interview or technical questions. I personally believe that any of you can pass technical screen for any big company, despite your experience or background. Because basically, it's all about preparation. And if you spend enough time and put enough effort into the preparation, any person, despite being an engineer or a non-engineer, can actually go through the first part. I've seen a lot of people from big tech who are they haven't been preparing, so they actually didn't go through the first stage because, as I said before, the whole interview process it's about shaping your experience into specific type of interviews. So if you don't prepare, you basically can't fit, and if you can't fit, you can't pass the first stage, like technical one. And the most important, of course, is final stage. You can't fake your way through final stage because it has so many different type of questions. We are checking on your like engineering skills, your cross-functional work, your behavioral part. And behavioral part is sometimes even harder than technical skills because you can't really calculate things you can't because behavioral is more about how do you work with your team, how do you manage your team, how do you work with the clients, whatever I do. Because idea behind the behavioral part is like we don't want assholes to be part of our company, of our team, because we'd better find a nicer person, maybe not as great, but not to be a part of like creating toxic environment. So final stage, again, if you're coming not from big tech, it can be harder than people coming from Microsoft to Amazon. But it doesn't mean you can't get an offer because not every Google candidate gets an offer to other companies because it's all about preparation. And right now, I would say we do help people to prepare. We send a lot of preparation materials. We send preparation packs, but also online you can find people who are working outside company and they've been here before. They can actually do pre-testing. So I always encourage people to spend as much time as possible for a preparation. Don't rush into the process if you're not ready, because if you get rejected, it will be like 12 months until you can actually reapply. So take your time. We normally do not pressure people into the recruitment process because for us, it's more important you get as prepared as like you can possibly be, rather than going like tomorrow and get rejected the day after. So that's why some engineers get in offers and some don't, because I've seen a lot of people from big companies being super arrogant and say, oh, I'm already working in a big company. I don't need to be prepared. I don't want to because I'm already a cool guy. I'm principal engineer from Amazon. I can get through the process. Not really. So, and I've seen a lot of people coming from smaller companies from like Eastern Europe who's like, yeah, I'm ready to fight for this role. I will be doing my prep as best as possible. And they will get an offer. Again, if you get a really dedicated recruiter who will help with all of this, your chances will increase. But again, it's almost on you if you will get an offer or not. So as I said, I don't really know because there are so many things in the recruiting process. Wow, that was close call. You don't really know behind candidate's life or recruiter's life or what happened in the company. But there are a lot of things you can do, and they are like part of luck, which actually very important. But it's a complex stuff in recruiting world. So what do you need to get hired? As I was saying before, super strategic approach and effort with how do you apply for a job. If you're applying for 3 jobs, you can't use in the same CV to apply for each job because their jobs are different, right? They use different phrase, they use different wording. You can't use the same CV. So effort and strategic approach starts from the very first time you see the job you really like. Also, I would never personally apply for the career side because I would be afraid to be buried under other thousands of CVs. So what I would personally do, I would find a person who works in recruitment in the company and ping them directly. It will depend on the person, but it usually increases the chances to get your CV into the company rather than just applying. Of course, if it's a smaller company, it should be fine. But personally, I would never go for application. If you know company has your friends or people you know, go for them because again, it will increase your chances to get your CV noticed because you can have the best CV. But if there are 1,000 other, it will be just drowning under those CVs and we might never see those. So it's your kind of job to make sure I or any other person from recruiting side will see your CV. Despite if you're being the best engineer, the best director in the world, it starts from the very beginning. And of course, the last part is preparation, as I mentioned before. If you don't prepare, I mean, I've seen people not prepare and getting offers, but they were like super smart and they were like 1 in 1,000 people. So I would rather suggest preparing for the interview process, preparing for everything you can prepare for, use external help, use help of the recruiters, and do all you can to do, get ready for this specific type of interest. And of course, luck, because imagine somebody from Facebook, Meta, Amazon will reach out to you right now and say, oh, I have family, I can't relocate, or the location doesn't work for me, or I don't want to go to London because it's like 50% tax. So why? A lot of luck depends on timing, where are you right now at your life. Are you emotionally ready? Because if you're going through some emotional stuff in your life, maybe you're not ready to go and dedicate your time. There's a lot of family issues going, or the world right now is not the best place, when you think about the moving to another country, another role. So luck, I've seen a lot of people who's been really great, but they had something happen in their life, stop them from being fully dedicated to the recruitment process. So luck not only means that, or I can spot your CV, or I can help you to get to the door. It's also about your personal life. Are you ready to make the change? Because older we get, we are less flexible. It's easy to move countries, things when you're 20. But if you have family, kids going to school, it can be many things. So is it the right timing for you? Is it the right opportunity? So to me, again, it's 50% dependent on the situation, but it's a big part of the recruitment process for me and for any person who applies. So the question about with AI, will recruiters be replaced? Yes and no. So recruiters who don't use AI will be probably replaced because there are a lot of easy things we can do with AI and spend less time. But people who actually use AI, it will be really hard to replace those recruiters. So yes and no. I probably won't be, but maybe at some time. So, and the last part is very basic. So what AI can bring to recruitment is very easy. First of all, the lower level of engineering will be probably automated as soon as possible with the online assessment or anything we can do not to spend too much time, because lower level is very less complex than senior people. And second of all, in the world where AI is used by us every day, why don't we use AI for the recruitment process, right? AI-assisted interviewers will be probably the part of many companies in the upcoming years. So it's something, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad, but I already seen Microsoft, Amazon, they're already implementing automation at lower levels and AI into support during the engineering process. And the last part for recruiting ops for big companies, agentic AI will help us automate many things, especially internal things, internal tooling, internal headcount planning, all this stuff, because we don't need to do it manually. And for size of the hiring we do over the year, we can eliminate many things and direct our efforts and actual recruiting right people rather than the manual job. So again, I'm not sure, I don't know, maybe it won't be like this. So you can take my word for that, because I'm just a recruiter, right? So this slide, I didn't actually get why I wanted. this is why some people get hired sometimes, because you can be the best person on LinkedIn profile, but it's recruiter's job to actually, through the conversation, to understand if you're actually good. If all of these fancy words actually going towards real experience, or just fancy influencer on LinkedIn. But this is why I hate LinkedIn, but that's just me. So yeah, this is pretty much it. I don't know if it was insightful or not, but if you want any other secrets or anything, I'll be outside waiting for a drink, right? Thank you.